I want to show you a method of adding magic links to your project, and I'm going to show you a GitHub project where I've laid out one commit with everything that you need. I began this project by reading this post by John Elm. It's a really good article. It's very short. You can go and read it yourself in like 5 minutes. And it kind of goes over just the very basics of sending email tokens. What I wanted to do was extend it. I really like John's post, but I wanted to take it a little bit farther. I didn't want any passwords left in my project. I wanted to figure out what's all the code I can remove from the phx.gen.auth generator that is related to passwords. I wanted to get rid of all of it. I also wanted one route for creating users and for logging them in. So no separate register route. I wanted one login route that handles login and registration. Now that is a stylistic choice. You don't have to do it that way, and I'll leave it as an exercise for you if you want to add in a registration page back. But I'm going to walk you through what I have here on this project. So I'm going to put the link in the description to this GitHub repo, and I'm also going to put a link to an article on my blog that kind of summarizes a little bit of this information. But if you come to this GitHub repo, click this link that will take you to this main commit here called How to Add Magic Link Authentication. This has everything we need. You can pretty much just use this as a reference and copy and paste code out of it. If you want, if you read my blog article in the description, I also posted about how you can get a Git patch from this commit and try to apply it directly to your project, to a new project that way. But I'm assuming that you've started a new project, you've ran the phx.gen.auth generator, and you've called the user's context users, and we're just going to start from that, assuming you have a fresh slate. So the first thing I want to point out is some of the files that can be deleted once we're done with this implementation. You don't need to delete them first, but just to point out, when we're done, we're not going to have this user confirmation instructions file. We're not going to have user confirmation live, forgot password live. All of these live views that the phx.gen.auth generator gives you, we can get rid of. We're also not going to have user registration live because we're going to combine that with user live, which is the login live view. We are, however, going to keep around user settings live, but it does have a forgot password form in this file. We're going to end up removing that form, and we're just going to have the change email form. But let's begin with the sign-in form. So this is the sign-in form. It looks like this. It's the exact same thing the generator gives us, but we've removed the password. So we can put in a new email and hit send me a link. And we get a notice that we have been sent an email. Now let's look at the code. So down here at this email input, this is the main email input, there was a password field here. If you have just run the generator, we can look at the GitHub diff, and it looks something like this. So there was a password field here, and we have removed it. So when you want to refer to these files to copy them into your own project again, you can hit view file and copy the entire thing and just overwrite what you have. Or again, you can refer to my blog post, and there is a detail at the bottom about how you can generate a Git patch. But we're just going to run through the details. So there's no password stuff in here, just the email field. And when we submit, we're going to hit this send magic link handle event. And I'm going to go past any live view specific details. I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you know something about live view. But when the user submits that email form, they're going to hit this function, and it's going to call login or register user. That is in the user's context. So we're going to go to the user's context here, and we're going to look at that function. Just scroll down until we find it. And it is right here. So login or register user does exactly what it sounds like it does. It's going to look for a user with that email. If it finds one, it's going to try to log them in. And if it doesn't find one, it's going to create a new user and then send the login token. And this is what handles that combining of the login and registration form. This is how I wanted it to work. If you don't want it to work that way, you can have separate forms and you can have a login function and a register function, and it's pretty easy to separate this. So this function here, build email token, this is very similar to what the phx.gen.auth generator does for confirmation email tokens. If you look at a project that uses phx.gen.auth, you'll see something exactly like this for confirmation emails. If we look at the token, the user token file here, the only thing that's changed here is we've added a new kind of context, called it magic link, and given it a different expiration time. I'm not going to go over precisely how these tokens work because it's really an implementation detail of the generator, not this specifically. But basically, they have a context with like one piece in the token and one piece in the email, and they check against each other to make sure the token is valid. The point is, we generate a token here, and then we call deliver login link here, and we pass the token in here. And here's the implementation of deliver login link. I'm going to show you how it looks in the project, not in a diff, because the diff is a little messy. But basically, what I have here has a couple details from a previous video that I made about how to do HTML emails out of the box in Phoenix. So don't worry about that. If you're interested in that, watch my previous video about it. But just ignore that for now. Basically, what we're going to get out of this render content function is just some HTML and text that's going to contain the token. And I'll show you what that looks like. So here I've opened localhost dev mailbox where we can look at these emails. And I actually made 2 attempts to log in with this email. And you can see on the first attempt, I received the registration content. And on the second attempt, I received the login content. So we do know that the login versus register is working. But this is what the email looks like. So when we click this link, we'll be taken to the root path and it will say that we're logged in. And if we refresh the page, we can see our email in the top there. So we know we're logged in, and we can click log out, go back to the sign in page. So we know it's working correctly. Just wanted to demonstrate to you what it looks like. And real quick, I also want to demonstrate changing your email. So if we are logged in and we come to the settings page here, we can change our email as well. We can change it to something like example.dev, hit change email, and it says it's going to send us a new email. Let's go back to the dev mailbox, take a look, see, open this up wide. We do have the confirmation email. We click on that, and boom, it has changed our email. So I just wanted to show you that it does work. You can clone this project yourself and you can go through those steps and it should work. But let's look at how some of those other pieces fit together. So if we go to the router file, you can see there's quite a few changes. There is a lot of files deleted from the generator. We don't have the register route. We don't have the login route. I have renamed to login because that's just a preference of mine. And we've removed all the reset password stuff. We've removed email confirmation stuff. And note that the reason we've gotten rid of email confirmation here is because when we're creating the accounts, we're going to create them with an unconfirmed email. And then when they log in for the first time, we're going to set their confirmed at timestamp. So that's going to confirm them. So that way we know any user with a confirmed at timestamp has logged in at least once. So we could set up a recurring job to go through and find all the old users who have never logged in by seeing that they never have a confirmed at timestamp. And then we could delete those users once a week or something like that. So that's why in this method, we don't need a confirmed live view or anything like that. So we already looked at user login live. That's the live view that's going to send the magic link. But what is handling when the user clicks on the magic link? Well, that's this route here, login email token, and then token in the params. And that's going to go to user session controller. So let's take a look at that file. It's right here. And again, you can copy this out of GitHub. So there's 3 routes in this file. One of them is very self-explanatory. It's just a logout route that I think comes from the generator right when you create this file. And then we've got this send magic link route. And these are non-restful. Yes, I know. Sometimes I do non-restful routes. I don't think you should force yourself to stick to it all the time. But this non-restful route here, send magic link, the reason that this exists is because in our live view, in user login live, in this form, when we submit this form, if the user did not have JavaScript turned on and they didn't have this action, we wouldn't have a handler for it. It needs an action to go somewhere without JavaScript. So by having this action, it lets the form work even if the socket is not connected. But if we want to post to this form, we need to be able to go to a controller. We need to have a controller handle the result of this call. If we want to do a get form, it is possible to have the live view kind of handle everything by putting a special case in mount. But for sending a email login token, something that's actually going to change the database, that's not the kind of thing you should do in a GET request. You should do it in a POST request. And that's why we need a separate controller that's going to handle the POST request. I wish live view had a way to do this directly in a live view. It would be really great if they added some controller features to live view, but that's just how it works right now. So that's why this is here. But login with token, this is what handles when the user actually clicks on the token in their email. So what happens when they do that is it's going to try to find that user based on that token, based on that bit of context in the token. And if it does find them, that means that the token was valid. It was a good token. So we're good to log them in. And we can also confirm them at that time, as we talked about earlier. And then we can log them in and we can redirect them. We can do whatever we want at that point. If we don't find a user by trying to look them up from that token, that means the token was bad. So we're not going to log them in. We're going to redirect them to the login page, in fact. I also want to show you this user settings live. This is the account route and the confirm email token route. If we go to that file, this has an example of what I was talking about earlier, where you can handle GET requests with params in the pattern matched parameter head of your functions in your live views. This is an example right out of the generator. So this file is basically straight out of the generator. The only thing that we did is remove some password stuff. So this is it in GitHub. Like you can see, we've removed some passwords and that's about it. Everything else is kind of the same. Another important thing to point out, since we don't want passwords, we can remove the hashed password field from the database. And we'll do that in a separate migration. And once we have that migration, we can also remove the 2 password fields from the ecto schema for users. So that's pretty much the gist of the changes. If we just scroll through here, in the context, for instance, there's a lot of deleted functions. Most of them are just having to do with passwords. There's a couple changes here and there. There's the changes to the password fields on the schema. There's the email sending changes. Obviously, we have some different looking emails now. There's the new context for tokens. I have also, in my code, changed a couple names of routes. I prefer account to user settings. There's the changes to the user session controller, that send magic link function we looked at, that function that handles receiving the token. We have obviously removed a number of live views that we don't need anymore. We've got the live view that handles sending the magic link. We have the user settings file, which has our change email form. We have the changes to the router, which are removing several paths that we don't use. The login route has changed from users login to login. And we have the magic link handling route. And we just have a couple other renames here and there. And then the migration. And then a number of tests. Some removed tests. We've changed some tests. There's a whole bunch of test changes in here. So how can you go about using this in your own project? I didn't make a library. I didn't write a generator or anything like that. I gave you this GitHub. So I think the best way that you can interact with this is by going down to the commit itself, copying the commit, then go to your terminal, and I'm going to assume that you have a new project where you have ran the phx.gen.auth generator and you've named the context users, as I have done here. But if you named it something else, you can change the patch. I'm going to show you how to create the patch first. So what you can do is you have to have wget installed, but if you have wget installed, you can paste that commit URL and then just add .patch to the end of it. And also we can rename the file when we save it. And what that file is going to look like when we've downloaded it is it's going to turn that commit into a git patch that we can then apply. And if you haven't worked with git patches before, it's very easy. I'm going to show you how to do it. But before we can do that, we're probably going to need to change the name of the repo in the patch. So if we look at the patch, we can see the project is just called example. And of course, there's an example web module and an example module. And we would need to change that to match our project. So let's assume our project is using something like app. Now this is, as you can see, I wrote this earlier, but what we can do is we can just use sed to change the patch in place. So this is the current version on the left, and then we're going to change it to app. And because it shows up lowercase and uppercase, we need to change it in both ways. So let's just say it's going to be like my app as the module name and my underscore app. And the good part about this is when we run this and look at the patch, we can see that it changed the example module and the example web module because we didn't specify. So it just changed them both. So there you go. That's how you can change the project name of this patch, and then we can apply it. It's really easy. There's a command called git apply, and then we can specify the patch. And there's two commands, two flags you may be interested in. One of them is -3. And if you do this, you're going to attempt a 3-way diff against your repo and the patch. Sometimes that works really good. If there is conflicts that it thinks it can resolve or that it thinks are resolvable, then you can resolve them in that manner. If there's files that Git doesn't think exists in the working directory, however, this doesn't always work. Another thing you can do instead is reject. And if you do this, you will end up with a bunch of files with like .reject on the end of them if they are files that don't have a matching file in your working directory. So that's the nice part about this. Dash dash reject will try to apply everything it can, and anything it can't will be sitting there on your file system, and you can go take a look at it and fix the problem yourself, basically. So that's pretty much it. I didn't really want to give you a super detailed, super exhaustive step through every bit of code here. I think if you're watching this video, you are capable of going and reading some of this yourself. I just wanted to tell you about it. I'm planning on a couple of projects that I want to use magic links for, and I just wanted a quick way to start them, to have a example that I can copy and paste code out of. So that's exactly what this is. Now, I do think it can be improved a little bit. It would be nice to have an example of doing some OAuth, for instance. I might add that in a second version. Another thing that might be nice is logging in on different devices. Now, this is one thing that I think is the biggest problem with Magic Link authentication. When you get the link and you open your phone and you click the link on your email client on your phone, and then you're logged in on your phone, it's a massive pain. There are ways around it. One of the things you can do is pop up a little question when the user clicks the email and says, hey, do you want to log in on this browser or do you want to log in on your other tab? I might make another video adding that on at a later date. Or if you have anything you'd like to see, let me know. It would definitely be possible to make a generator for this if you wanted to. If there's some interest in that, it would definitely make the workflow a little simpler, and that's something that could be explored. But let me know in the comments if this was useful to you.